Picture this. A caveman wakes up one morning, stomach growling like a broken drum. No fridge, no supermarket, no door. Just him, a couple of rocks, and the bright idea, I will catch a rabbit, with nothing but sticks and stones. Genius, right? Except the rabbit runs faster than his legs, dodges better than his eyes, and honestly has more common sense than his entire clan combined. This is where the comedy of Stone Age trapping begins. The art of trying to outsmart creatures while barely being able to outsmart themselves. Imagine a guy in a loincloth tiptoeing through the forest, holding a rock like it's the ultimate weapon. He spots a squirrel. He freezes. He throws. The rock bounces off a tree and lands squarely on his own foot. Cue the prehistoric scream. You can almost hear the tribe in the distance muttering, "Yep, that's our best hunter." And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the exact moment cavemen realized they needed something better than their two clumsy hands. So, how do you trap animals without guns, nets, or Amazon delivery of steel bear traps? You improvise with sheer desperation and the limited IQ of a guy who still thinks thunder is a god throwing tantrums. The caveman brain clicked one day. If animal always faster than me, then what if I don't move? What if I make animal moves? Into me. Boom! Prehistoric epiphany. The birth of the trap. Now, these traps weren't exactly OSHA approved. In fact, most of them probably killed more cavemen than deer. Imagine someone digging a hole, covering it with leaves, and proudly announcing, "Animal will fall inside." Next morning, who's inside? The same caveman because he forgot where he put it. Congratulations, you've trapped yourself. Breakfast is canceled. But here's the magic over time. They got better. They started to notice animal habits. Where deer walk, where rabbits nibble, where wild boar dig. They realized, hey, if I put a stick here and a rope there, maybe the rabbit becomes dinner instead of comedy. Still, every trap was like a Stone Age lottery ticket. 90% chance of failure, 10% chance of meat, 100% chance of humiliation. And don't forget the social element. Every failed trap became tribal entertainment. Picture the caveman presenting his invention to the tribe. A rock balanced on a twig, waiting to fall. The rabbit strolls by, sniffs, and walks away laughing. The rock falls anyway, straight onto the caveman's head. The tribe bursts out laughing, inventing the world's first reality TV moment, Caveman Fail compilation. But through failure came survival. Because if you think about it, trapping wasn't just about food. It was the first step toward human strategy. It was chess with sticks and leaves. Except the opponent was a rabbit with more survival instincts than your uncle after 3 beers. Every time a caveman got lucky and actually caught something, he became a hero. He strutted back to the cave like, "Look, I have rabbit. Worship me." Here's the kicker. Even the smartest cavemen knew it was never guaranteed. Sometimes you caught a deer. Sometimes you caught a raccoon. And sometimes you caught absolutely nothing but the smell of your own sweaty loincloth. But every trap, successful or not, was proof that humans could think beyond muscles and rocks. It was proof that brains, however small they were back then, could sometimes beat speed, claws, and fur dot. And this, my friend, is why trapping with Stone Age tools wasn't just about meat. It was about turning failure into comedy, comedy into lessons, and lessons into survival. Because in the end, the caveman knew one thing. If he didn't figure it out, the only thing getting trapped was him, inside his own hunger. Now that our caveman has realized throwing random rocks at squirrels won't exactly put meat on the fire, he starts looking at the world with different eyes. Suddenly, every stick looks like an engineering opportunity. Every vine looks like a prehistoric Home Depot aisle. This is where the story of stone, stick, and string begins the first DIY survival kit, courtesy of desperation. Let's start with rope. Cavemen didn't have Amazon to deliver paracord, so they stared at plants and thought, this long green thing, maybe I twist it. And so they did over and over until they had something resembling a string. Granted, the first few attempts probably snapped after 2 minutes, leaving the caveman on his back while a rabbit sprinted away, giggling in rabbit language. But eventually they figured out how to braid plant fibers strong enough to hold. This was their version of not tying for dummies, except the dummy was usually the guy tying himself to the tree by accident. Next came the sticks. A straight stick wasn't just a stick anymore. What's the backbone of an invention? Cavemen started using forked branches, sharp stakes, and bent saplings. Imagine a prehistoric brainstorming session. One guy holds up a bent tree branch, another ties a rope to it, and suddenly they've invented the world's first snare. Except the first rabbit they caught was probably accidental. and the tribe spent an hour arguing over whether the gods had put it there. And of course, the rocks. You can't forget the rocks. These weren't just for smashing toes anymore. Cavemen began using flat stones as anchors, round ones as weights, and sharp ones as bonus features for their traps. If you ever see a rabbit sniffing a pile of rocks in a forest, remember, that was once a gourmet Stone Age dinner waiting to happen. But here's the funny part. No matter how clever the setup, the traps still failed in the most embarrassing ways. Picture this. A caveman spends 3 days building an elaborate contraption of sticks, vines, and rocks. He shows the tribe proudly, whispering, "She, tonight, big meal." Next morning, the trap is sprung, but instead of a deer, it's holding one very confused turtle. The caveman size holds it up, and the tribe bursts out laughing. Dinner's ruined, but at least everyone has a good story to tell around the fire. Sometimes it got even worse. Some cavemen got too creative, like the guy who tried to use a swinging log as a trap. The idea, deer walks by, log swings down. Boom, reality. Deer walks by, log misses, and the caveman gets flattened instead. Congratulations, you just invented slapstick, comedy centuries before Hollywood. Yet, through trial and error, the system improved. The snares got tighter, the trigger mechanism smarter, and the placement more strategic. Cavemen learned to follow trails, sniff out animal tracks, and set their sticks and stones like miniature landmines. Slowly, the tribe went from starving to feasting at least on good days. And you know what? This was more than just trapping. It was the first glimpse of human ingenuity. Cavemen weren't just copying nature anymore. They were bending it to their will. A stick, a rock, a string, simple things. Yes, but combined, they became tools of survival, comedy, and sometimes accidental self-destruction. So next time you see a stick in the woods, imagine it as part of a Stone Age blueprint. Because for our ancestors, it wasn't just wood, it was hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, tonight's dinner would be more than roasted turtle. So now, our caveman tribe has figured out ropes and sticks. But what if you're trying to catch something bigger than a rabbit? That's when the Stone Age genius decided, if I can't run faster, I'll make the ground do the work for me. Enter the legendary pitfall, trap basically a big hole in the earth, disguised like a prank from the world's first frat house. The idea sounds brilliant. Dig a hole, cover it with branches and leaves, wait for an unsuspecting animal to fall in. Instant dinner. Except the execution was rarely flawless. First, digging a hole with Stone Age tools wasn't exactly fast. It was like trying to scoop concrete with a seashell. One caveman would dig for hours, sweat pouring, back aching, while the others sat around joking. Still no mammoth. And when the hole was finally done, that's when the comedy really started. Because camouflaging it was harder than it looked. Too few leaves and the animal saw right through it. Too many leaves and, well, the caveman forgot where the trap was. You can guess what happened next. Step crashes. Boom! The tribe's great hunter is now the tribe's dinner guest at the bottom of a 6-foot hole. If you listen carefully, you can hear the laughter echoing through prehistory. But let's give them credit. Eventually, they got smarter. They started lining the pits with sharpened stakes, making it more effective. Effective here meaning dangerous for everyone, including themselves. Imagine a deer running, falling in, and skewering itself on sharpened sticks. Victory! Until the caveman tries to climb down to retrieve it, slips, and joins the deer in prehistoric kebab land. Safety protocols, still pending. Still, pitfalls were powerful. They could catch deer, boars, even the occasional wolf. But what they really caught most often was cavemen themselves. A tribal elder probably held weekly meetings. Reminder, if you see, leaves suspiciously arranged like a salad bar. Don't step there. Yet every week someone forgot. That's why pitfall traps weren't just survival tools. They were prehistoric blooper reels. Of course, camouflage had its own artistry. Cavemen experimented with mixing mud, branches, and grass to blend perfectly with the ground. Some were so convincing that even days later, they couldn't find the trap. You know the phrase, lost in the woods? Yeah, sometimes it meant, congratulations. You just booby-trapped yourself into starvation. But despite all the fails, there were glorious victories. Picture it, a tribe huddled by the pit, holding torches, waiting. Suddenly, an antelope plunges in. Cheers erupt. Tonight, the cave is full of roasted meat. For that one night, the trapper is a hero. Until tomorrow, when he's the one screaming from the bottom of his own hole. And here's the truth. Pitfall traps weren't just about food. They represented human cunning, teamwork, and a touch of dark comedy. Digging took time, patience, and cooperation. Covering it required observation, and every success meant the tribe could eat without sprinting after animals, like clumsy track stars. But let's be honest, the real entertainment came when the trap failed, because nothing bonded a tribe more than watching their neighbor fall into his own carefully crafted hole. That's prehistoric sitcom material right there. After bruised feet from rocks and bruised egos from falling into their own pits, cavemen decided to level up. Snares and nooses. If you've ever tripped over a jump rope, congratulations, you've already experienced the same technology that fed our ancestors. Only difference. Instead of embarrassment, they were aiming for dinner. Here's how it worked. Take your fancy braided vine, the prehistoric version of Home Depot rope. Tie it into a loop, attach it to a bent sapling or a heavy stone, and boom, you've got yourself a primitive ankle bracelet for whatever unlucky creature wanders by. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. Setting a snare was like playing chess with a rabbit that had been running the forest longer than you'd been alive. One wrong placement, and the rabbit hopped away laughing, while you were left untangling your own foot. And oh boy, did cavemen tangle themselves. Picture this. A proud hunter sets his snare at night, whispering to the tribe. Tomorrow, feast. Dawn comes. He rushes out, only to find himself hanging upside down from the very tree he used. Imagine the tribe's reaction. Laughter so loud, it probably scared the real animals 3 valleys away. The guy swings there, loincloths dangling, yelling. Not funny. But oh, it was funny. Prehistoric stand-up comedy at its finest. Still, when it worked, it was pure magic. A rabbit gets caught, kicking wildly. The rope tightens, and suddenly lunch is served. No marathon chase, no pit digging, no rock toe accidents. Just cleverness doing the work. Snares became the go-to method for small game. From rabbits and squirrels to the occasional unlucky bird. Of course, success meant patience.
My own trap.
You couldn't just set one snare and call it a day. Cavemen set dozens, lining paths, trails, and burrows. It was like opening a prehistoric fast food chain. Try your luck at Caveman McSnaresware. Every 10th customer is free. Some days, all the traps were empty. Other days, jackpot. But either way, it beat chasing after a deer with bare feet and a prayer. There was also an art to placement. Cavemen learned to watch animal patterns, where rabbits nibbled grass, where deer squeezed between trees, where birds landed for seeds. They figured out choke points, funneled paths, and ambush spots. This was the birth of strategy prehistoric data analytics, if you will. Except instead of spreadsheets, they had muddy footprints and guesswork. But let's not forget the slapstick, because even with perfect placement, cavemen couldn't resist testing their own creations. One guy pulls the trigger, stick to demonstrate answer. The rope whips up, smacking him in the face. Another brags about how secure his knot is, only for it to unravel when the tribe watches. These were the bloopers that kept morale high, even when bellies were empty. And perhaps the most legendary fails were when snares caught the wrong things. Imagine setting a delicate rabbit trap, only to find a furious badger snarling inside. Or worse, your own dog-like wolf companion stuck in the loop, looking at you like, really? This is how you repay loyalty. Dinner plans quickly turned into damage control. But despite all the chaos, the snare symbolized progress. It showed that humans didn't need brute strength to win. They needed patience, observation, and a bit of rope. Every successful catch was proof that brains could outwit brawn, and that sometimes the funniest mistakes led to the greatest discoveries. Because at the end of the day, trapping with the snare wasn't just about food. It was about learning that survival is equal parts comedy and cleverness. And nothing says evolution quite like a caveman swinging upside down from his own invention. By now, our caveman heroes had stumbled, bruised, and face-planted their way through rocks, sticks, pits, and snares. But here's the twist. All those accidents, fails, and laugh-out-loud moments weren't just embarrassing. They were the blueprint of survival. The traps weren't merely about dinner. They became the difference between a starving tribe and a thriving one. Think about it. Without traps, hunting meant endless chasing, bruised feet, and a lot of empty stomachs. With traps, cavemen could rest, gather berries, or argue over who invented fire first while their contraptions did the work. It was Stone Age automation, the prehistoric version of passive income. Set it, forget it, and hope tomorrow there's meat waiting. Elon Musk dreams of Mars, rockets. Cavemen dreamed of not starving to death because a rabbit conveniently tied itself up. But But traps were more than tools, they were symbols. They represented the first time humans bent nature to their will with strategy, not just muscle. Every rope, pit, and stick was proof that brains could make up for lack of claws, fangs, or speed. And in that sense, traps were civilization's baby steps. Without them, the tribe's story might have ended in one hungry winter. With them, humans began climbing the food chain, one rabbit at a time. Of course, the comedy never stopped. Even as traps improved, fails were inevitable. Someone always stepped in the wrong spot, tied the wrong knot, or got flung into the air by their own masterpiece. Those moments weren't just funny, they bonded the tribe. Around the fire, they laughed together, roasted what little they caught, and told stories of the guy who once snared his own beard. In a world full of danger, that laughter was as essential as the food itself. And let's not overlook the pride. Catching something in a trap wasn't just about eating, it was bragging rights. The caveman would strut back into camp, rabbit in hand, chest puffed out like he just invented electricity. The others clapped, cheered, maybe mocked him a little, but deep down, they respected the ingenuity. That moment transformed him from that guy who once fell into a hole into that guy who outsmarted nature. The legacy of those traps lived on. Today, we have steel snares, sophisticated hunting gear, even motion-activated camera, but the foundation is the same. A loop of rope, a heavy rock, a hidden pit. What started as caveman comedy became the backbone of survival techniques, still used thousands of years later. So next time you see a squirrel dart across your yard, imagine a caveman watching the same scene, clutching his vine rope with hope and desperation. He wasn't just setting a trap, he was laying down the first chapter of human innovation. And whether he caught a rabbit, a turtle, or just himself, each trap was a step forward. Because in the Stone Age, every trap told the same story. Life was short, survival was messy, but human ingenuity mixed with a healthy dose of slapstick always found a way to win.